Hello and welcome to Shite Talk, an Irish history podcast. My name's Kevin Larney, and I think at this point it's become apparent that I've killed Jason Brennan and I've taken over the podcast. We pre-recorded all the episodes. I figured if I just kept making these apologetic intros explaining why he's not here, I'd buy myself a couple of weeks, but honestly, the sad thing is it seems no one cares. No one's written in asking where he is. No one seems that worried, which is good for me, I suppose, and the crimes I've committed, but not great for his ego. Luckily, he's dead, though, so it's fine. This is a sort of last testimony to the man. This is an episode that Jason wrote and read to me about a man called Brendan Bracken, and it is a pretty mad tale. So mad that it was done over 2 parts, so this is just part 1 of the story, and part 2 will be out later on this week or maybe next week. But before we get into the episode, I'd like to thank 2 separate individuals, Lindsay and Barry, for both reaching out individually to tell us that there is in fact now a Lidl in Banglestown. Jason's been away from home for too long. The other correction from last week's episode that Barry had for us is that it's Ray Coyle and not Ray Cole, as I kept saying. And that might be why I couldn't find much information on him. Information like the fact that his daughter, Natalia Coyle, is an Irish Olympic athlete. She's competed in the last 2 Olympics for Ireland in the modern pentathlon, and I think she's in the Tokyo Olympics if it ever happens, if it ever goes ahead. And I love the modern pentathlon. It's my favourite of all the Olympic events. We could have riffed on that for at least 40 seconds. If only I hadn't been so stupid. So thanks for that, Barry. Thanks for that, Lindsay. Thanks to everyone who's messaged us since the start of the season. We've got a lot of nice messages through Instagram at Shy Talk History and over the Patreon, where you too can sign up to support the podcast for 5 simple euros. You can get access to the final part of the Sean Quinn episode, and there'll be a bonus episode we're recording later on today, actually, that we'll be putting out in the next week. And big thanks to everyone who gave us a rating since last week. We got a couple of lovely reviews in from people and a nice little bump in the charts, which is good. I don't think it doesn't mean anything. It literally means nothing. That I don't even know if people are aware that there are podcast charts. I'm mildly obsessed with them. I don't understand them, but I like it when it goes up a little bit. I mean, maybe if we get high enough, we'll get a letter from Eamon Ryan in his role as Minister for Communications saying, "Good job, well done. What you 2 lads have done for Irish comedy history podcasts is best described as the opposite of literally falling asleep on the job in the Dole / convention centre in the middle of a pandemic and larger climate crisis." That's all I want. I don't think that's too much to ask, but that's it. That's the whole preamble. Sorry Jason's dead. Follow us on Instagram. Leave a rating if you like it. Send us some money and buy me a coffee if you really like it. And enjoy the episode.
Gather around now, you're in for a story. Old tales of lore, all in search of a glory. The history and mystery of lads, lasses and all. Discoveries and voyages, the rise and the fall. Follow me now as we go back in time. We trace the steps of Irish lineage to find. Joseph from Carlow and Kevin the dog. Guide you through the ways of Churchill.
Born in Templemore, Tipperary, in February 1901. That's a year after 1900, Kevin.
That's it. Well, actually, it's 2 months after 1900, Jason.
Technically, it could be 1 second after, Kevin. So shove that down your throat. Brendan Bracken. I've said that right. I know I went over it very slowly, but this guy was the 3rd of 4 children to Joseph Kevin Bracken and his second wife, Hannah Agnes Ryan.
Okay.
Now, Joseph, the dad, was a member of the IRB and was one of the 7 founding members of the GAA, as well as the first chairman of the Tipperary County Board and the vice president of the GAA.
Sure. Well, yeah, the GAA was invented in Thurles in the heartland of Tipperary.
They call it the Hurles for Thurles.
They should have renamed Thurles to Hurles, or when they were inventing hurling, they should have called it Thurland.
Thurley.
Yeah, they should have just called it Thurley.
Yeah, and the next town over, Schlitter.
So sorry, what town is he from? Our man Bracken?
Templemore.
Oh, yeah, okay, so the home of the guards.
The home of the guards.
Ah.
Yeah, home of the guards, land of the not free, the imprisoned, I guess, would be the...
No, if anything, they're more... Actually, the guards have to practice on someone.
Yeah, quite the opposite.
Lifting lads for everything.
So, now, his first wife's name was Agnes Matthews, and his second wife's name...
Matthew Agnes.
Close. Hannah Agnes Ryan.
Okay, so we had a thing for the Agne.
The Agnesai.
Agnesai. I don't know what the plural of Agneses was, but I'm sure he did.
It could be.
Because he clearly had the thing for them.
Now, Joseph dies in 1904 at the tender age of 52, and Hannah moves the family up to Dublin by 1908. Everywhere I looked said, including her two stepdaughters, so the two previous
marriage.
Good woman
that was nice
taking
of her.
on the role, and then he dies. She could just leave them on a church doorstep.
If you left them on the church doorstep, the stepdaughters of a divorced marriage, they'd probably be burnt up.
Well, or worse.
Yeah. Well, now tell me this: when did she get her sainthood?
Oh no!
Was she canonized there and then, or was it a sort of? Is this what the story's about? I won't jump ahead. Tell me.
It's not. This is all mainly just backstory. She's mainly forgotten for the whole thing. It's just I wanted to say that he was from a loving family, so he was well reared. Yeah. Just to give you an overall kind of like I want to fill in the edges. It's like when you're going for a fancy meal, you start from the outward, you get into the crux of the whole thing later on. Mm-hmm. And then soup.
Of course.
I like soup afterwards to wash it all down.
That's a Carlo man's dessert.
Yeah, that's why they call us the scallionators. It's a potato and leek. Now, while in Dublin, Brendan goes to St. Patrick's National School in Drumcondra, firstly, before being transferred to O'Connell School, which was run by the Christian Brothers.
Fair play to him.
Mm-hmm. Now
so he was definitely beaten around a bit as a child.
Probably a little bit, it's fair to say, especially because of the fact that now he was a smart lad, and he was described as a man with brains to burn, but got into a bit of trouble, Kev. You know, Mitchin and the crack.
I'd imagine the Christian Brothers took that literally. When they say brains to burn, they were like, he's a little bit too smart, to be honest, Mrs. Bracken, and we're going to need to burn him just a tad.
We went
to get the smarts out of him. If you ever see him coming home with a candle sticking out of one ear, you'll know it's because he answered too many questions.
I think it was mainly Mitchin and the crack. Also, well, he did also, I know this, I don't know it to be fact because I read it online 100 years after it happened, but
of course.
He used to write stories about his family and teachers and classmates and charge a penny for every person that would read them.
Damn.
I know, good.
So he'd stumbled across the podcast financial method.
Brendan used to take in bikes from people as I'll mind your bike for you, and then rent them out to other people in that spare time. He's double dipping.
That's pretty. So he was like, "I'll look after your bike for a week," and then while they were gone, he'd be renting it out one day at a time.
Yeah, or maybe hourly.
That's pretty clever. That's the sort of shit that like Davey was doing and all the brokers. Yeah, you give us a bike and we'll look after it for a week, and then as soon as you turn your back,
that's
you'll be like,
7 bikes.
I'm gonna rent a bike for it. That's not a bike for half an hour.
Yeah, well, you've given me one bike, so that's 175 bikes. He's basically looking at it through a kaleidoscope.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the other thing is, I don't know how this was a business, because it was everywhere I looked up, it was always thrown into. You'll find this as well when you look up historical accounts, which is why you can't really trust them. A lot of the time it's people just, like modern journalism, copying what somebody else has done and just putting their name on it.
Yeah.
Because it's the same sentences, it's just copy and paste. Because somebody said he used to organise gangs to destroy neighbours' gardens, which is obviously a very lucrative business.
Yeah, how would one make money out of that?
I don't know, but it was used into, like, they threw that into, like, he was selling stories by the penny, and he was double dipping on bikes. And then also he was getting people to wreck gardens, and like, well, that either has nothing to do with it, or he has some kind of an underage mafia kind of intimidation ring going on, like a protection.
I don't know. Right, so put yourself in this mindset, Jason. You wake up, you go outside to inspect your prize begonias, and they've been smashed. You turn yourself to a moment of solace to bask in the glory of your pear tree. It's been cut down. You say, "Not at least my daisies will be there to give me strength in this hour of need." You turn around, they've been trampled, and you're at a loss. You stumble out of your garden looking for an escape. A man walks up to you and says, "Man, do you want a bike for 25 minutes?" You're like, "Yeah, get me out of here."
No, I've left it with a full tank, so if you come back and it's empty, that's on you. That's an extra, actually 7 times the cost of the bike itself.
It's in the small print, but sorry man, you look at your garden just got trashed up. Hey, listen, you want to cycle down to your real garden? Take your mind off it, rent this bike, come back to me in 20 minutes. Don't even worry about the cost, just give me your credit card. We'll put it on hold. You can figure it out when you get back. Don't worry about it, bro.
But now,
he's a crafty devil.
He is.
I like him.
He's got a bit about him, a bit of street smarts. But he wasn't long for Dublin, because eventually those, like, all of that crack, people said, you know what, he's a bad influence. He's a bad lad. You can't be coming to a private school doing this kind of crack, or even just any school really. If you're, like. Also, I imagine it was as soon as any of the teachers were like, "What did he say about me?" And he's charging people to read. What the fuck? Like, it's slander. Unless he's like, as a 10-year-old, getting every fact perfectly right, it's defamation for sure. And slander. So, Cracken Bracken, he was sent to Mungret College in Limerick in 1915, a Jesuit board. Well, does Mungret, that's a fancy rugby school, I think, is it?
Oh, really? Mungret?
But no, I think, now I don't know if he was, but I think he was a Jesuit himself, but I think he was sent there because that's probably seen as a strict enough boarding school to set him right.
Sure, yeah.
But he didn't really bother going too much. So between the truancy, the odd little bit of fighting, the kind of crack you'd expect, he left after 5 months of acting the maggot. So a fairly shite student. He says when he was found by his family, he says he was working as a reporter for a newspaper. So he was found by his family. They just thought he was at school. And when they went to check up at the parent-teacher conference, they were like, "Oh no, he's been gone for months. He never showed up in the first place."
Oh yeah, geez, that Brendan, that does ring a name. You're right. I think he showed up at induction week, and ever since he's been down writing for the Carlo Leader.
He never signed out of detention, actually. So we just got to pay. That was it. That was he broke through the window like Chief in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and he was yet to be seen again.
So he's down writing for some like provincial paper.
It's like the Limerick Leader.
Yeah, but at like what age is he now?
So
like
14 or 15. So he's either lying or a genius. But yeah, the family track him down, and they track him down because they find the hotel bills he's racked up under their name. So I assume he's not that much of a genius if he doesn't want to be caught.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah. So he hasn't thought of like another name. This is also a glorious time when you can walk into a hotel and be like, "Yep, my name's Jason Brennan, that's Brennan, and I'll be staying for 16 nights, please." Put it all on, like, not even my card. Like, what would have even been in that time? Just, like, put it on my name.
good name.
Yeah, my good name. Here's my address back in Carlo. If you could just send the bill to that, I'm sure I will get to it when I see fit. No, good day, sir.
Because we had already invented the wheel and fire, but we hadn't yet invented lying.
No.
So people just thought, no, that's... Oh, sure, why...
That's sure, like, hardly.
What would they have to benefit from lying to me? What are the money?
Well, now tell me this. How would he have known Jason's name? How would he know where he lived and his name if it wasn't him?
How would he have been able to spell another man's name? Because most people I know just write their name with an X.
Exactly. I only know how to spell one man's name, and that's myself. And Jesus.
And Jesus, for the most part, won't go down on legal documentation as a verifiable source of identification.
I've tried that before to have him as a guarantee on my loans. Will not work.
Yeah.
They're wise to that one. But not wise to a man walking in and saying, "I'm my parents. I'll pay him for a month's room and board, please."
Oh, just wait for his lies. So this whole thing pissed off his mother so much.
Can't imagine why.
She did what all good Irish mothers would do, Kevin. She sent him off to Australia to live with his cousin, who was a priest in Victoria.
Okay. So the thing, like, he's too far away. We can't keep an eye on what he's doing down the country. He's signing up for hotels under our name. What we need to do, and, bear with me now for a second, we need to send him further away. Get him out of the country. Get him out of the continent. Send him to Australia.
I like the idea. Because it's said now, I think it's the making of him, Kev. Because it's said that when he goes down there, he's a bit of a nomad. He reads a lot and educates himself like he was doing beforehand. But now he doesn't have the shackles, the constraints of regular, school life nonsense.
Okay, he's just free-forming.
Yeah, but also he had to work on a farm, which he wasn't too happy about.
Right. I mean, you head off from Ireland. You want to leave the whole life behind. A new world, new opportunities, new way of living. And then you land in Australia and you're like, right, straight to farming.
Yeah, it's not great.
Do you remember how you used to farm back in Carlow? It's pretty much the same as that, only under a blistering hot sun, and the kangaroo will kick you in the face.
And in chains.
Good luck to you. And in chains, actually. Sorry, I forgot to mention the chains. That's actually a big part of what we do here. You're going to be in chains.
Yeah. No, he didn't have it so bad because he was going over to stay with his elderly priest uncle or cousin, or like we'll get on to that later. I'd say when he was down there, he found himself, because he was reading a lot. He was a nomad, which is a catch-all term, I feel, for anyone who's left the country. But he was a bit of a nomad, and he's read books. Now he started calling himself Brendan Bracken. This is where he got the Rendell part.
Right. So he added a Rendell to the middle of his name.
He did, yeah.
Because he'd been reading.
He had.
You can't do that. You can't just read your way into having another name.
Oh, I think you can. If you're willing to lie and be a dick about it.
I suppose, who the fuck's going to check in Australia?
Yeah, but it's the same as any time you've heard, when someone introduces themselves to you and they clearly give you not their birth name.
Yeah.
Whereas, this is clearly a nickname that either they or somebody else has given to them, and you're like, all right, so you just go by that then. So you're just never going to tell me, and then in 5 years' time you're going to be, oh, did you never know that my name was John? Because you just been calling me fucking Digger for all these years. Yeah, because you refused to fucking tell me what your name was.
There's a certain point in a man's life where, if you're introducing yourself to a new group of people and you're like, all right, man, my name's Smello, what's the crack? You're like, come on, man.
When you're meeting new people, when you're meeting the people who you've moved to a new country and you're still going, or even if you've moved to Dublin from the country.
So what Brendan did was try and reinvent himself. I'm going to step away from my old life.
Yeah, and now he's moving back to Ireland at this time as well, after his sojourn over there.
He's already done. I thought this story was going a whole different direction. It's very rare for an Irishman at this time to go to Australia and then come back.
Now,
much like at any time, I would imagine, to be honest, based on my own friends.
If I finish that paragraph, you'll definitely see that you pick the best and worst time to jump in there.
Well, please go on.
Because all I've wrote is that in 1919 he went back to Ireland to visit. His ma was now living in Westmeath. While there, he realised there was a big dispute between his siblings over how they'd share out their father's inheritance. So he says, "Feck ye, I'm off to Liverpool." So he just instantly moves there. And then in 1920, he started attending Sedbergh School, a fancy public school. US listeners, public school in England means private school. Fancy boys. I know what you're thinking, Kevin. Oh, Jason, that you mean college, because clearly by this time he would be...
He's an older man.
Yeah, he would be 19. No, he goes there and in his interview says that he's a 15 or 16-year-old Australian boy who's been orphaned after his parents died in a bushfire. He has some distant family connections to Montague Rendell, the headmaster of Winchester College.
There's so much to unpack.
No, but in fairness, at the time, think about the time, 1920. Why bother saying you're Irish? It's not the happy-go-lucky, everyone wants a pint with you.
Of course. Yeah, exactly. It's not exactly
the War of Independence is going on. You probably have...
Hello, I'm from that war-torn part of your United Kingdom that's trying to secede from you. I'd like a place in your college, please. Oh, it's all full up? Oh, but so... When he said he was from Australia.
You've also come back from Australia with a big dirty tan.
With a big...
So they're probably like, you with a big tan and you're from Ireland, you're probably a criminal.
Like if you... Right, so he says he's coming from Australia. Why does he have to say his parents died in a bushfire? They don't know his parents. Dying in a bushfire...
Stereotypes. Because they work.
It's like if you came from Ireland and were like, oh, my parents died in a potato famine. Like, you may as well say they got knocked out by kangaroos. They don't. You don't even have to say they died at all. You just be like, they're still alive back in Victoria.
Yeah, but it's not racist if the stereotype is vastly true.
That's true.
Do you know?
Do you imagine when, like, Brendan showed up to the induction board of the college and he was like, yeah, I'm from Australia. I'm an orphan. And they were like, well, we've got one stamp here for parents died in a bushfire and then one stamp here that says other. And to be honest, I haven't inked up the other stamp. So... We just do another parents died in the bushfire. Just makes it easier, mate. Just makes it easier. Right down to the left. Go into the parents died in the bushfire dorm if you wouldn't mind. Just makes it simpler for the forms, mate. Don't want to get the paperwork out. Boom. Another parents died in the bushfire. We've got a parents died by wallaby.
You think that there's a separate room at that point where it's definitely just I'm stamping this on your forehead and walk out that exit there. It's like if you try to go into the nightclubs. When I was in Berlin the other year, and what's the name of that? What's the name of the big nightclub? The main one?
Berghain?
Yes, Berghain. We went, myself and my mates, Paul and Ben and Dan went there. Silent producer Dan. And when we got there, it was like a Sunday night, so it was like, it shouldn't be that busy. Everyone's going back to work. And we got there, very little queue.
Incorrect.
Walked up. A small enough queue, only queued for like 10 minutes, walked up there, everyone checked their ID, they're like, yeah, that's fine, everyone, okay, cool. And we walked through, and they opened up the door, and they shepherded us through onto the street. They had a separate... They had a separate little side door, and you were like, oh, I'm walking into the coolest club in the world. And before you knew it, you were just on not even a main street, the side street where the railway went by. So as soon as you walk out, it's just like 6 people who've also been rejected who are sat over there waiting to get the overground back into the other part of the city. So they get to see your face and you feel like an idiot. But then also... for the next 15 minutes until that train actually arrives, you get to look at people. Everyone. Yeah, and the first one you're like, oh, I feel kind of, that was me a second ago. And then the next one you're like, oh, it's not as bad. It's kind of, by 4 or 5 in, you're just cackling and you're going, this alone is worth the trip out here. You're like, I'm glad I didn't get in because of that story, of just getting to see the reaction on everyone's face of going, well, how is this street the best nightclub in all of Berlin? And just seeing how long it takes. Like, sometimes 1 second, sometimes 5 or 6.
Sometimes not at all. And they're just fucking giving it socks, dancing around, waiting for the ode to come. But so you reckon he just got stamped on the forehead with parents died in the bushfire, and he's been indoctrinated into this British boarding school?
Yeah. And he's also, like, that name that he's used as his middle name is the name of the Winchester College headmaster. Which would make you think, why wouldn't you just go there? Like, if I was the person doing the interview, I'd be thinking, why don't you just go there then? If you're related to the person who runs the school.
Yeah. Why not just...
Who's travelled here from Australia, why wouldn't you go to Winchester? Or why wouldn't they call up the Winchester College and be like, do you have any fucking...
And so he's trying to imply that he's related to the guy who's the head of the Winchester College by having his first name... He's taken his first name as his middle name. Why not just go the whole hog? He's lying about his whole heritage. Why not just be like, my second name is Winchester?
It's too obvious. You can't, because you're too close to Isengard at that point.
Of course. You don't want to. You don't want to overplay your hand. You got to be subtle. The art of deception.
Yeah, you might as well wink on, as you're saying.
He probably did.
Well, yeah. But at this stage now, though, he's basically, this is his character. This is his. Brendan Bracken. Yeah, this is his... Because he actually... I'm skipping ahead a bit now, I think, but he adopts this identity and kind of refuses to drop it. There's accounts of Emmett Dalton. You know that name?
No.
Major General in World War I for the Brits, but then became Michael Collins' right-hand man. Might have to do a podcast about him.
Yeah.
Now, so there's accounts of him saying that he met Bracken in 1926, and he goes... Sure, you're hardly Brendan Bracken. Do you know, your man I used to go to school with back in the day in Dublin. And he goes, no, not at all. Don't know what you're talking about. Faith and Begara. I mean, Christ. I mean, not at all, old boy.
I mean, didgeridoo, mate.
And then Emmett Dalton goes, no, it's definitely you. I remember the smell of your corduroy trousers.
Jesus. Yeah, that's rough that you would travel literally halfway around the world and back and still have the same smell of corduroy trousers.
Yeah, that's like my living, waking nightmare.
To have travelled around the world and then come back to Loughlin Bridge and somebody were like, Brennan, is that you? I could smell the smell of scallions and pints of Guinness off you.
No.
You haven't changed a bit.
To have divulged that information that I remember, that obviously the other person doesn't and doesn't care about, but they've just, how weird my brain works, that it's just lodged in there. That I remember it was the other week I was at a bar and I saw a comedian I hadn't seen for like a year or so, and he was like, oh, you're that Irish guy, and he was like, well, enough known around Austin. I was like, oh yeah, we've gigged wherever before, and he was like, how have you been? I was like, oh good, I saw you running the other month. Literally, I was like, oh yeah, I just remember that I drove past him as he was running by me, and I was like, that's now always going to, like, I'm always going to remember how awkward I felt after, oh, I saw you running.
Oh yeah, do you remember me? Remember, yeah, you still smell of rosemary, so you're still using that cologne. And actually, do you still take your tea with 1 lump of sugar, no milk, a little bit of dash of oat milk if you're feeling cheeky, and if you're getting what is it, you're still on the old Jack Daniels dash of Coke. I mean, how are you getting on? I haven't seen you in a while.
The ex-wife's still dead, huh?
Yeah. Your birthday's still 13th of February, 1694. What are you still 500 years old? What's up, bro? What's happening? I mean, what was your name again? Dan? Stan?
So anyway, yeah, the smell of corduroy trousers.
Oh yes.
So I often that just means he remembered him, and maybe Brendan remembered him as well. I mean, he might remember, but couldn't allow it to be a. That feels like that sounds like a story that would be in a play that you'd have to study for the Leaving Cert.
Sure.
You're like,
one of them was
childhood best friends, and now they've found each other on opposite sides of military. Oh no, I don't remember who you were, but we shared that romantic kiss one time. No, we didn't. It was under the moonlight. No, it wasn't. It was under an evening sunset. Ah, so you do remember it? Yes, but my father would never allow.
He said I wouldn't be back allowed on the plantation if I ever admitted it.
Yeah. So there's also another account of him saying that his brother died in the Battle of Narvik, Norway. Okay. And no, Kevin, I had never heard of that either.
Did you never study the Battle of Narvik of Norway?
Spell it.
Norway. Now let's move on, all right? There's no point boring the listeners. We're not a Norwegian history podcast. We're an Irish history podcast. Barrel on.
Fair.
Full steam ahead.
But I had never, because obviously Narvik doesn't have a football team.
No, I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, if they had a football team, I'd have heard of it.
Sure, of course.
But yeah, he'd said that his brother was dead, but actually, in fact, he was alive back in Ireland and was hounding him for money, asking for, the old remittances.
Well, now, handing him for money that he was owed, or just handing him for money? So it seems like Brendan has just disowned his family entirely. And made up this new story about him being from Australia. Well, his main,
that's exactly,
the cornerstone of,
exactly what.
But the cornerstone of what he's done is just change his middle name, which I would say, like if I was going to reinvent myself, I wouldn't move to America and be like, "Hi, my name's Kevin. I know what you're thinking, John Larney, but it's actually Kevin Stephen Larney. You shan't be able to trace me. I'm a new man." Oh, my brother's been ringing me up on the daily looking for the money owed him. He's not going to find me. My middle name is different.
Yes, but also in opposition to what I said earlier on, sometimes travelling so close to Isengard is the best possible thing to do. So
well, I'm pretty sure that's what the point of the story was, that they travelled right underneath.
Yes, but also when I said it earlier on, it made sense too, because sometimes it doesn't make sense to do that. It seems very stupid.
Listen, if we've learned anything from this podcast, is that you can twist the words of Tolkien to mean whatever you want. Yeah. On any given day.
Not all those who wander are lost. But also Lost was a bit shite in the end. I think that's what he was saying, that stick to the mythical, not to the modern.
Sure.
Now, although, like, I do want to just say that all of this is this is, again, still backstory that I don't want to be like, yes, his brother is looking for money, but it's not a big part of the story, but he's not bad to his family. He still gives them money.
Okay. So he is sending money back.
But it's just the fact that while his brother is asking him for money, he's also saying, my brother's dead. I don't have a brother or multiple siblings or a life in Ireland.
Sure.
I don't even know Ireland
Yeah.
exists. Wait, there's 2 of them. Since when? Wait, not yet. Maybe now.
Yes.
Soon to
Maybe
be.
in a couple of months. Yeah.
Um,
What year is it? How many Irelands are there?
7.
Grand.
But now, Kev, we get into it, right? He puts the public school education to good use, becoming a headmaster at Bishop Stortford College for a bit, before he started his career in magazine publishing and editing newspapers in 1922.
Okay. All right. So he's in the zine business.
That also does mean that he was a headmaster in 1921, latest 1922, which would make him actually 20 or 21. Does that seem like a fair position to hold?
I mean, in those days, especially like after World War One, I mean, a 20-year-old must have seemed ancient. That entire generation would have been wiped out. There would have been 14-year-olds and there would have been 60-year-old men, and everything in between would have died in Flanders. I mean, sure, why not? Why not be a headmaster at 21?
Women just had to play the parts of men between the age of 25 and 42.
Exactly, yeah. That's it was really a turning point for us as a society. That's when women came into their own, when all the men had been shot dead.
Okay, I guess we can admit that they can do some things adequately.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't be paid fairly for it.
Oh God, no. Lord, no.
But you haven't realised now that I'm talking about his actual age.
Yeah, so you were saying he was born in like 1901. So he is 20.
Yes, but what age did he tell people when he was going to the school that he got qualified in to become a headmaster?
Sorry, yes, yeah.
So he was like 3 to 4 years younger than what he was, which means that he's now, in their eyes, a headmaster at 18.
Well, again, I mean, like, everyone's dead. He's probably teaching children who are 9. All the teachers in the school would have went off to war. They're either cowards or they're 14. So why not be a headmaster at 18?
Maybe. Although I do feel that it opens you up a lot more to that kind of like... Do you know, in Ireland, there's like there's a newly hired female teacher and she's 21 or 22. So all of the 18-year-old guys are like, Jesus Christ, there might be a chance here. And also, there very much so is. If you're
absolutely.
like,
I mean,
if you're an
precedent.
18-year-old, like if you're already playing for the under 21s or God forbid the senior team for your local county, and there's
mercy.
Oh, would you stop? What you'd get through, it wouldn't even be worth writing up the court report.
They've got that form pre-stamped, ready to go.
Everyone gets 2, and after that, you're taking the piss.
Yeah.
But yes, so they think that he's about. I assume at this point they realise that he's lying. They just love his chutzpah, his moxie.
Sure, yes.
Which I think is the case. And there's been a couple of people allude to it where they're like, no, of course we knew that he was... But like, come on, it's a bit of fun.
Yeah, he's got that Australian charm.
He was the smartest 19-year-old lying about being 16 that I'd ever met. You can't take that away from him.
No one has any idea what age he is then.
He's 42. Is what he is.
Right, yeah, he's timeless.
Picture Hans Moleman at this age.
Kiss his head, Marge.
But now it's 1922. Ireland's just got the treaty, but he's not too pushed as he's Anglo-Aussie now, at this stage.
Yeah, he's Australian. What does he care?
So he's just focused on selling advertising space in newspapers and, telling lies to the public.
Right.
Now, using his connections and ability to climb the social ladder, what he learned in public school, he eventually he's working for a company that prints the Bible and other boring, successful books. And it's here he meets J.L. Garvin, editor of The Observer, and he became a bit of a mentor to him. He helped Brendan navigate the world, and he taught him the ways of the rich before he helped him to transition into politics. Garvin invited him to a dinner at his gaff, and it was there where some politician he had met took a shine to Bracken. So much so that he went to Garvin after the dinner and inquired about Brendan. And so Garvin tells Bracken this. And so Bracken goes, well, sure, I might as well call him up. They organise a dinner. They form a partnership. That partnership would see them fail at a run for a hopeful Leicester West MP seat in Parliament.
Okay.
But he stuck with him to help him run his campaign for another unsuccessful attempt for the next year at the 1924 Westminster Abbey by-election. Now, that politician lost back-to-back campaigns, but lost the Westminster Abbey by-election as a non-party affiliated constitutionalist and anti-socialist. But he did so well as that the Conservative government said, we'd be better off just bringing him in, letting him run amok than causing hassle and shite. So they gave him a spot as the Conservative candidate in the October general elections later that year. The party and the politician won, and despite having no experience in the financial or economic sector of a nation, or anything at all really, the MP was appointed the Chancellor of the Exchequer. That politician's name, Kevin?
Was it Winston Churchill?
It was Alan Sugar. No, sorry, you're right. No, Winston Churchill.
No way. So hang on. So Brendan went to Australia, came back from Australia, lied about who he was, went to a college, met this guy Garvin. Garvin introduced him to a young Churchill.
Not a young Churchill. So by this point, Churchill has been in politics and then ousted for his, kind of wayward or like not party line political opinions.
Right, yeah.
So he's been out in the dog shed for a little bit. Now, I glossed over the fact that Brendan's actually very good as a magazine, a newspaper editor, or kind of getting people. He's a big deal around London. So once he's met him the first time, Brendan.
So he meets Brendan at a party, and he's like, "Oh, right, this guy is a media mogul."
Yeah,
and he goes through 2 failed elections with him, and then ends up getting elected just to sort of, well, from what you're saying, just to shut him up.
Because he was, well, no, it was kind of the same as, how would you put it? Like, if AOC didn't get elected in her ward in New York.
Right, okay, yeah.
If she had have just lost out that initial election, the groundswell around that would have been so popular and she became such a notoriable figure that she was going to be elected somewhere. She would have just had to, like, it was always going to be a thing. Like, you're now a public face. So he at that point was back in the public opinion and public eyes so much that you just kind of had to, hey, it's better us get him now than him keep running on his own and causing hassle, or the other side's getting him. So they just brought him in. It's
better that he's in the tent pissing out than outside the tent pissing in.
Yes, or in the tent pissing on himself.
Sure, yeah.
But no, Brendan for this whole time was still running a lot. Like he was running a lot of successful newspapers and publications around London. The politics was just one of these things that he was like growing up as an old boy tie kind of wearing fella. Like through his Australian and English schooling.
Yeah,
he was like, this is the important thing. Politics. This is how you get up to those higher levels of society. Now, so when they met, Brendan was only 22. Well younger than half the age, or around half the age of Churchill. That's at the time. It was, he's a very old man. He's not long for the world. He's 45. But
Jesus, he's on his way out.
Yeah, but when you see photos of him at the time, or like just afterwards, or during the war, where you're like, he was only like 50 something or 60 during the war. You're like, also he looks wrecked.
War will do that to you, Jason.
And the cigars and the whiskey.
Sure.
But the Brendan then became like a son to him, even though he had a lot of his own sons and daughters. So much so the point that people thought that he was an illegitimate son.
So in many senses, much more than a son to him, because he treated his own sons quite poorly.
Yes, he treated him far better than any of his actual... Well then, but also I was thinking about it that like how salacious the media has gotten in recent years. That wouldn't be there's this guy in his cabinet, he's very young, he has his ear, he listens to his opinion a lot.
Yeah.
Very important. You wouldn't be going, I bet it's his illegitimate son. I bet he's having sex with that young boy.
But now,
like what we know now about politicians at the highest level of politics worldwide, you're like probably having sex with young boys.
But again, in the 20s, you'd imagine they would be like, the media would be like, what's going on? What's with this relationship? Why has he got the ear of this man? Who is this guy? Well, and if they it seems like they even scratched the surface of his past with a fucking toothpick. They'd be like, oh, he's not Australian. He hasn't got the middle name he's told us he has. He's not legitimate on any level.
I've told you that before about your man from Carlow or from Loughlin that ended up over in Boston and was in a murder trial.
I don't think so.
No? Oh, I'll tell it now in the podcast then.
Yeah. Is it your dad?
No, my dad broke the story for me because I saw this thing pop up online that there was a man over in Boston that had been linked to his wife's death, and he was the number one suspect, but they couldn't find any proof of it, so they went to trial, nothing could come back, and there was some other suspects, I don't know what the fuck, but like he had got away with it, but they were always suspicious of him. And then 10 years afterwards, they had realised that he was an illegal immigrant from Ireland.
Okay.
From Loughlin Bridge.
All right.
And I was like, wait, this can't be true. And then I ran downstairs and I showed my dad. I was like, do you see this guy? Do you remember it? Like, do you remember this guy? Because it says that he's from Loughlin Bridge, and they're after implementing him in the murder of his wife. And he's like, oh yeah, I do remember that fella. I was like, do you reckon he did it? I was like, I don't know, but I think the reason he went to America was because he stabbed his brother. So if I had to guess.
Well, now I wouldn't want to say a word against the man, but I do remember last I heard of him, he'd left the country because he committed a murder. So I suppose, it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility.
Well, I wouldn't like to besmirch the man's name, but at a certain time he had definitely attempted to do the same crime he's been committed of now.
Certainly now, like he's a murderer. What I say is a mass murderer. Does 2 murders make him a serial killer? I wouldn't say so. In my mind. I wouldn't
call him a mass murderer. He was always there on a Sunday and very rarely volatile.
Give him a gun, that's a different story, but I'm still living. The only man just stabbed me in the arm.
A knife seemingly was the thing, and it was multiple stab wounds, but Churchill invited him at the time to give you a quick glossary. He invited him to, the other club. Have you heard about that before? The meeting of all the cool cats in London?
No, is this one of those weird British clubs that they have?
Yeah.
The other club.
Yeah. Because there was a thing called the club, which was, for politicians and the well-to-dos and that, but then there was the other club, which actually became the club, because they are all the people who are willing to say what they like, or etc. It was him and co-founder F.E. Smith.
Okay.
Because Churchill, they'd set it up because Churchill wasn't allowed into the club because he was seen as a bit of a controversial figure.
Yeah. Well, now, because it's funny to hear people talking about Churchill being controversial from a 1920s standpoint, where they were like, he's controversial. No, not for the famine in India, or for the poison gases in the Middle East, not for the concentration camps in Africa, not for the black and tans in Ireland, but for where are we in all that?
I don't know. It seems like they would be on board with everything he would have went along with.
Like in 1921, if he ran on the platform, we were like, I'm going to crush the Irish Rebellion. I'm going to starve the Indians. I'm going to take over Abyssinia. Have at it, brother. Well, now, I don't know at what point to bring this up, but this is a story I'd wanted to do for a while, but there's not really enough on it, unfortunately. But apparently, in around about 1908, when Churchill was running for a by-election around Dundee, there was an Irish woman called Mary Maloney who just followed him around and rang a bell every time he tried to talk for the suffragette movement. So he was canvassing, trying to be
the town John Cryer.
And there's photos, and he was just going out canvassing for his local election, and she just he'd get up on a podium to talk about his whatever, and she'd just be like ringing a bell, being like, "Fuck this motherfucker."
I respect that because you're allowed to do it.
Yeah, there's nothing illegal about it. And frankly, I think, whenever you see your local Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael candidate, whichever you prefer, going door to door, canvassing the next general election, why not follow them around with a giant bell? Why not just fucking ring a bell behind them?
Literally the only people that will think that you're crazy are the people under the age of 16 or 17 or 18 that don't really care about politics, the people who are above 40 and have money so they don't care, or anyone in the other age bracket who doesn't care about politics. But those other 7 lads around the town will be like, he has a point.
But I'm just reading her Wikipedia page here, but apparently her nickname was La Belle Maloney. Which
now,
is
that is not her name. There's no way that
that's her nickname.
Okay.
La Belle, and that was apparently given to her by Sylvia Pankhurst that we talked about.
Yes, obviously the French dialect was steaming hot. It was piping in Scotland at the time. Aberdeen was full of It was a lot of Marseille dialect. It wouldn't actually been as much of the north. It didn't have as the guttural drawl as that.
But
that's nonsense. They called her the mad bitch with the bell.
That wagon with the fucking bell. But big respect for Mary Maloney. I think we'll stick up a photo of it on the Instagram, but I think it's just so funny, and I can't believe it hasn't been replicated in like the last 100 years in Irish politics, where someone would just follow around a politician with a fucking bell.
You say you can't believe it, but it's very soon we could easily.
Oh yeah, definitely. Even in the Dublin Bay South by-election, I think we should all show up with bells in the next couple of weeks. But anyway, please go on with this story. This is crazy.
So the at the by-election, the Westminster one, or Westminster Abbey, that thing, I couldn't find too much in it, but I did see on Wikipedia that he was stabbed.
Who, Churchill was?
No, Bracken.
Oh, sorry.
Because I assume that all elections up until about 1980 were kind of like Peaky Blinder election days.
Yes, yeah, it was a free-for-all.
Yeah, where it's like...
If you stabbed a man, but you weren't caught, it was all's fair in love and elections.
Yeah, what does it matter if these 75 tickets that have the same name in them are all covered in blood? They all count.
Yes.
That's fine.
Exactly, yeah. It's kind of like, do you ever play the card game Bluff or Bullshit? It goes with like a few different names.
Yes, with my girlfriend of 6 years and it was 16 to 22, so I've kind of erased most of that now from the memory.
There you go. But you might, if you can delve back into those painful memories for a second, you might remember the object.
I'm
of
good,
the game
thanks.
is to
You can
lie.
tell the listeners about it now. I'm just gonna.
You put the cards face down and you lie about what's there. I'd imagine it's like the 1920s equivalent of like, if they showed up to the counting office with a ballot box with like 2 ballots in there, like, yeah, there's 100 ballots for our candidate. Listen, count them up and we'll see you tomorrow. And they open it up and they're like, man, there's 2 ballots in here. You wouldn't respect us if we didn't try. We'll get you next time. Fair play to you. Good luck. You have to give it a shot, like.
No, I could never hold anything against a man just giving it a go.
Oh, you devil, you thought we wouldn't notice this is all just actually 7 blood-stained bits of paper with a knife, which seems like the murder weapon if I was to make assumptions, but
also, it did just remind me that most of the elected politicians that we have now are all like 3rd and 4th generation politicians, and most of them would have been elected about 100 or so, ages ago. Most of them probably did a lot of illegal shit for the first person to get in.
Well, like I'd say maybe 40% of our politicians now are descended from, they're only there because their grandfather fought in the War of Independence or the Rising. And then another 40% are just there because their grandfather stabbed the man and stole a box of ballots back in 1932 and wrote his name on a load of scraps of paper.
Brendan Bracken
and then,
was here.
And then the other 20% are hard-working politicians who are maligned, and they all belong to Fianna Fáil.
I'm not getting
Vote FF.
I don't know. I don't know who's going to be in charge of Irish politics when I come home, and I just don't want to spend $3,000 on a hotel stay.
Well, Jason Brennan knows where his bread is buttered.
Oh ho ho, Kerrygold. But as I was saying there, after the success of all of this, Churchill was realised that Bracken's a bit surplus to requirements.
Oh no.
I know.
He's not going to drop Bracken.
Now, he's still friendly with him, but
He's not going to release the Bracken.
he is. He releases the Bracken, and he's like, well, no, Brendan kind of decides to himself, in all honesty, from what I've read, that he's like, I need to pursue my own career in politics, or else I'll end up kind of like a... who's your man in House of Cards who kills people? That the bald-headed fella.
Yeah.
I love him. He's great. He's like a...
Yeah, he's in everything.
Yeah, he's like a wide-eyed Stanley Tucci. But you end up like a him where you're like, oh, no one's going to ever remember me. I'm not going to ever have a power. I'm going to be like the guy behind the guy. So it makes sense for him to then just dip out, not be his wrangler and doing bits and pieces, continue working in the media to gain clout and such. Climbing to the top of that game by seemingly just getting big guest stars to come in and write columns for him in different publications. Names like Winston Churchill.
Calling in old favourites, okay.
Yeah. This fella called Benedict Mussolini.
He got Benito Mussolini in to write for his column.
That's how you pronounce it. There you go. Yeah. Pure genius move.
The 1930s was really a fucking prime time for just following men who were mad out of their cradle. It's like, World War I's never going to happen again, man. Let's fucking get the army on the street.
It's YouTube of a few years ago, but 100 years ago. Like, that's basically...
Yeah.
They're like, oh, who could get the first Logan Paul interview after he, videos a dead Japanese suicide victim? They're like, because that's going to do big numbers. But it's just back then, it's like, could we get a fascist dictator of Italy? Yeah, big fucking numbers. This is the same time, it was like, I'll put down the paper and I'll listen to Lord Haw-Haw. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So he's getting all the big boys are coming in, writing the articles. Post-World War I tabloid kind of feel. He was Rupert Murdoch. I was going to say before Rupert Murdoch, but do you reckon he might be that old?
Rupert Murdoch was born in 1931, apparently.
Okay, so we're talking pre-Murdoch times. We're talking the OG Murdoch.
Yeah.
In 1926, he became the founder of The Banker, a financial magazine. More clout again, more respect with the higher ups as soon as you're in with the financials. And still today they call their awards for the Bank of the Year the Brackens, as a bit of a hat tip, which
sure,
pretty cool, right?
But now, right, but under what? I mean, no harm to the man, but under what has he done by 1926 to indicate that he in any way should be listened to about how the economy should be run, let alone writing a newspaper called The Banker, being referenced 100 years on?
How many times have you met somebody's rich child in Dublin and been like, they're just there going like, no, I'm a Marxist. I've got this tattoo and a denim jacket that when you roll it up has a sheep's wool underneath the sleeve. And I'm going to tell you how the country and the world should be run. No, I've never been to a communist country. No, I've never actually spent a day inside of a jail of any of those places. I just think that that's how the world should be run.
Now, I'm a 22-year-old with 5,000 followers on Twitter, and I'm not going to say that I should dictate how the world is run, but here is how the world should be run. Now, I'm fully aware that me and you have also spouted off a whole load of nonsense about how society should be run.
But also,
we're almost 30 and therefore fine.
Yeah, and we preface the name of the podcast is Shite Talk. We openly say that we're both drinking right now, as we say. I'm taking a sip of beer as I finish this sentence. There we go. See, it's seamless.
But so genuinely, at 26, like, had he ever worked in a bank? He doesn't seem to have nothing you've told me so far has indicated that he's any...
No, he's read
notion about what the financial
books,
industry
but
is.
That's all intelligence is. in modern society as well as in like the last 100 years, what you need to do is have the confidence to shout somebody down, but also that doesn't work if you don't have the knowledge to make people think that you're impressive as you do it.
Yeah.
So you need to have like 40% knowledge of a concept and then 100% confidence, and just if anyone says, hey, oh no, that's clearly wrong because of these things, you shout over them. You just shout at them and say that I had heard that you'd touch somebody inappropriately, and then see how they deal with that. Because if that doesn't work...
Yeah, but in 1926, they'd be like, I heard you touch someone. They were like, what? That 14-year-old girl I met last week who was my cousin? And what about it?
Well, I was only introduced to her from your 12-year-old nephew.
Yeah, you know. I don't know why I brought up this line of questioning. You're right.
I also didn't want you to have sex with him. That was not part of...
We're all touching our underage relatives. I don't know why I brought this up at all. Sorry.
Oh.
I withdraw this line of questioning.
Now, in a documentary I watched there on YouTube, so it's definitely true.
Yeah.
It said that he had butlers and drivers. I think the driver was also someone who used to work for Churchill, and then he hired him after, so he's getting like Churchill's sloppy seconds. But I did see this, that Bracken definitely did have the street that he lived on, the name of it changed to add Lord to it.
Oh, what was the street name then?
North Street.
So he changed his street name to Lord North Street.
Yes. And there's not...
That's dumb as fuck.
That's what, as soon as I was like, there's no good joke to be made here. It's just...
But it'd be like, if I wanted to assert my dominance on this neighborhood, and I was like, I'm going to call the South Circular Road Lord South Circular Road. Like, the fucking...
No, that's... You think that sounds like a dickish thing, but also in one website...
I don't think it sounds dickish. It just sounds... It's just stupid. And I mean, at least put your name in there. If you're going to go for something, don't be like, I'll stick a... Like, no one knows... You know what I mean? Like, no one knows it's to do with him. If you just put a Lord on the name of the street, they don't know it's to do with him. They just think it's called Lord whatever the fuck.
I respect that. You're taking my idea of... That's usually where I side on an argument. It's like, oh no, I know this person's wrong. I don't have a problem with that. My gripe is that they're not wrong enough. They should have went the whole way in. If you're in for a penny, in for a changing the name of a street to your surname for no reason while you're still living and in no way important to anybody whatsoever.
Exactly. And like, have you got any information about how he did this? Like, how was he able to do that? Did he just literally go up and change the sign?
Yes.
I respect what he's done. I just think that he didn't go far enough.
Well, I think just because of the fact that that's the name of the... Also, don't take this to the bank, but he definitely 100% take this to the bank, that he used to have those same butlers come in during dinner parties to announce to himself and guests that Mr. Bracken, the Prime Minister, is on the phone for you.
Now that, I mean... I like that.
Yeah, that's like... That's...
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I mean, you know, whatever about changing the street name, if you're going to have butlers, I'm not going to have them come in mid-dinner and be like, sorry, it's Mr. D. Higgins needs to talk to you at the moment. I'm sorry, I'll be back in only a moment. Mickey, baby, what's going on? Trouble with Russia
How are
again?
the dogs?
Let me sort it out. Now, what's the trouble with the Ruskies? Let's get down to brass tacks. We don't have the plutonium to hold them off. Let's make a deal.
We need to really fix this tax issue. We're giving far too much tax benefits to corporate entities that have no benefit to the Irish nation or public.
And then I'd have my wife nudge the nearest debutante in the table and be like, he's talking to Michael D. Higgins.
The president.
He's a big man.
Yeah, he's...
I like that as a move. Bringing your butler into, of course. That's just good statesmanship.
But sure, Kev, it'd be believable enough to think that the Prime Minister would be on the phone with him. You know, he has the career in politics already, and now the career in he had a bit previous, but now it's gotten even better in publishing and magazine writing and editing and the such. He's a rich bitch, is what he is now, Kev. He's got money and clout and friends in the media and politics, and sure, isn't he only in his mid-20s? So he cashes it all in all his favours and was offered the marginal Conservative seat in Paddington, North London. This was May 1929.
Okay.
Right. Now, during the election, he was at one point denying the fact he was a Polish Jew.
Well, now, correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but he's not a Polish Jew.
No.
He's a secret Irish immigrant.
He's very much so not a Polish Jew. So his defence for the whole thing is very much so true. He is not.
But he's denying.
No one's asking him, is he an Irish immigrant who went to Australia, declared himself an Australian orphan whose parents died in a... That would be too specific a thing. That would be like one of my friends has ratted me out, if that's the case.
But are they like digging into his past and be like, this whole Australian orphan thing doesn't add up? Are you, and I'm going out on a limb here, a Polish Jew? And he's like, close, but not right. No cigar.
I'm glad you said that, because no, I'm not. I can honestly, wholeheartedly say I'm not a Polish Jew.
That is not it. You're off the mark.
Yeah, now, you'd imagine he had to go file, because I found reports of people saying that he had to look home for his passport or his birth certificate, which I don't think existed at the time.
Maybe.
In Australia and Ireland, definitely not. They weren't keeping these things in file. Like, it wasn't in a filing cabinet. This isn't Donegal Catch. I don't really know how he managed to get away with it, because as soon as they were like, okay, well then you're not a Polish Jew, so that's fine. And no one was like, but still, maybe the accent or the fact he's definitely not English. Should we look into that somehow at all? Maybe. No, he's not a Polish Jew. Like, that was you had one guess.
You came at the king and you missed.
It was like 20 questions. You were on 19.
Yeah.
You were there. You're like, you've got one more. Now, he won the seat of that election by 500 votes, and Churchill also had got into Parliament at the same time, but they were in opposite parties. Now, Churchill also had to quickly resign after being elected because he complained about Britain allowing India's home rule.
And for some reason that got him fired.
Yeah, people were like, no, you shouldn't be saying that. We should give it all back to India. And you're like, obviously, yes, because what you really want to do as a British politician is to say, of course we want to give everything back to everyone, but it's just because they're such thick Neanderthals that they can't do it themselves that we have to continue. You've seen what Ireland's like. They're fucking dopes.
By Jove, those paddies couldn't be trusted to run a relay race, never mind a republic.
By golly gosh. But, so Bracken also, in a turn of events, Bracken steps down with him and aligns himself with Churchill once more. So around 1929, 1930.
So he quits his job to go out with Churchill on the people of India shouldn't have their own self-determination ticket. Yes. Good call. Good call.
Now no one's thinking he's Irish. Everyone's like, nah, there's definitely not.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Now, during the 1930s in Europe, Kev...
let's reiterate, he very much is Irish, and here he is vying for Indian subjugation.
Much like my time spent in 2020 America.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've a long and storied history with this. But now, Kev, what's a big talking point in 1930s Europe?
Is it time to reassess the damage being done to the proletariat by the same few rich families and this centuries-old swapping of lands in the pursuit of colonialism? Or should we just blame the Jews and do it all again?
Exactly. He's got Mussolini heading into Abyssinia.
Mm-hmm.
He's got Hitler doing his crack in Europe. And all of a sudden, Churchill's warnings of the dangers of appeasement meant that there was a sliver of hope for the exiled folk in politics. That they were like, do you remember all this stuff we were warning you about? Now it's all the chickens coming home to peck.
Here we go.
Now, Bracken started an anti-appeasement lobby in his place in Lord North Street. Him running the ship, of course. Now, Neville Chamberlain, I believe, at this point, was in charge of the UK. He appoints Churchill as one of his right-hand lads because war with Germany is nearly upon them, and he sees Churchill as a good wartime lieutenant. Which, do you know much about that, Neville Chamberlain, and how he was just like, If in doubt, appease dictators. Just what if we give them an inch and they only want an inch? Okay, I know they wanted an inch previously, but now they just want a foot.
There's been a lot of stuff written over the years about how Chamberlain, Chamberlain only gave them an inch so he could get back to old Blighty and get her fired up, ready to take it to Fritz. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like that was...
No.
There's the famous photo of him coming back with like the papers in his hands. We did it, boys. No more war in Europe in our day. We've solved it. And sure, the Austrians wanted to go with them anyway. And the Rhineland... Well, it's only frog territory, so who really cares?
But so now with Chamberlain bringing in Churchill, our boy Bracken is back in the big time.
Bracken is back in
amongst the bigwigs. Dunkirk and such happens. Chamberlain is now stepping down because he's not fit for the post, and Churchill doubts that Labour will support him as a leader. And he goes along with the idea of letting Lord Halifax take the seat after Neville Chamberlain steps down. So Bracken finds out about this and rushes to him and says, "You're mad. They'll definitely support you. And if you let Halifax win, Hitler's bound to destroy all the good guys."
Makes sense.
So the three of Chamberlain, Halifax and Churchill meet up. And they're there expecting Churchill to give the nod of confidence to Halifax because Chamberlain's given it to him. And then when it comes to that point, instead of doing that, what does Churchill do upon Bracken's advice? He just said nothing.
Okay.
So when they went to him direct, so Winston, do you support my idea of, we talked about this beforehand? Are you good to go now? It's all on, he's going to write it down. Are you good to sign off on? Do you want to say, is there anything you want to...
And he's just like keeping it hush. Scratching himself.
And it is now referred to as the silence that saved England. Because after a couple of minutes of just deadpan silence from Winston Churchill, your man Halifax goes, "I'm not able for this role. I can't do this. This is not for me." And he steps aside, and not only steps aside, but says that Winston Churchill should now be in charge of the country.
Excellent.
So Neville Chamberlain, also with no backbone, decides to go, for sure, let's just do that, and we're both done with this. Can we leave and never talk about this again? Great. So, but also, we laugh about it, but if Churchill didn't do that, and if Bracken didn't make him do that, and then Churchill didn't follow through, we might all be speaking German.
In fairness to him, maybe.
But also, that is how Winston Churchill became the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of England and those other countries.
As they were referred to at the time.
Yes, the United Kingdom of England and the other countries when they do other things good. But that is we're going to do the whole second part tomorrow.
Well, class. I'm really looking forward to hearing the second part of this story. It's been crazy so far. This young Irish Scot who's lied about his identity made it all the way to the top. He's bending Churchill's ear, and now he's heading into World War II as his wartime consigliere. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's such a ball tickle as well to get to that point where it's like, and now we're going into World War II. Well, if you want to hear the end of this one, next
True,
week.
Yeah, you're a cliffhanging diva, but I guess it's something to look forward to next week. So we'll chat to you then.
Yeah. Shafter.
Good luck.